Since Java 8 has made the bold and exciting move to introduce functional programming into the platform, functions have become first-class citizens in the language. This means they can be passed and returned from methods, stored in variables, and modified just like Java primitives and objects can. To support this, Java introduces a new construct which allows functions to be defined. This is the Lambda expression. Whereas we predominantly pass data around in a system, packaging functions up into Lambda expressions allows us to pass behavior around. Let's just take a quick look at where we are already used to passing behavior. The most common scenario that springs to mind are event listeners. This is where you pass some code to be executed in response to a button press, for example. This is common in Swing and Android through action listeners and click listeners. Next we have comparators. Here you create a class which knows how to compare two objects of the same type, which defines an ordering between them. You can then pass this to a sort routine which will use it to order the elements in accordance with the comparator. Then we have the various filters that we might implement. For example, a file name filter which can filter a list of files. There are lots of other cases too where we pass behavior around, but these are some common ones which you're probably already familiar with. Lambda expressions allow operations like these to be expressed very concisely with a minimum amount of code. This leads to functional code in Java 8 being very compact and elegant, as we'll see. To demonstrate this, let's remind ourselves of what we'd have to do to get a button to respond to a click event in Swing prior to Java 8. First, we'd have to create a wrapper class which has the method we want executing when the button is clicked. This is our event handler code. Swing offers the action listener interface for this, and we can see here we're implementing that interface so that we can plug our behavior in. Then we'd instantiate that class so that we can pass the resulting object into the method which registers our event handler. This is the action performed method on JButton. Although it's quite simple code, it's still relatively non-trivial to put it all together. After all, we only want to execute a method with one line, yet we have to provide a class implementing the action listener. The reason for this is that before Java 8, only primitives or objects could be passed to methods, and so the best we could do then was to pass an object which had the callback method we wanted executing. We could compact this into less lines though. For example, if we don't need the event listener to be used by any other UI component, then we could define the class as anonymous and pass it in line in the call to the addActionListener method like this. This saves us creating an additional Java source file just to house our event handler. But ultimately, we're still having to write a lot of code to do something which should be simple. Java 8 enables us to pass behavior around in the form of Lambda expressions very concisely, without the baggage of having to create and instantiate a container or wrapper class like we saw before. Here is the equivalent example in Java 8 code. Here we just pass the function, that is, the Lambda expression, to the method, and that's all we need. As you can see, Lambda expressions allow us to cut out a lot of boilerplate code since functions have now become first-class citizens in the language, and this is key to allowing us to do functional programming cleanly and concisely on the Java platform.